Hey, this is DD from the closet. I'm the DM. I'm stuck in a closet. I'm sitting on the floor of a closet. I'm in a closet. What are you going to do about it? Nothing, because it ain't your business where I'm sitting. Today I'm drinking another non alcoholic beer. This is called Servia, something like that. It's pretty decent. It's basically, it's fizzy barley water. I've added, as you can see, some orange slices, squeeze the juice and just drop them in. Gives it a nice little kick, and kind of evens it out a bit. I think it's pretty good now. Taking a little break from the hard stuff, just taking a break, just say I can, and I'm feeling good. It's been, I'm good. I'm good. I can. It's good. We're good. We're good. Anyway, so today I want to talk about battle and how to make it interesting. We teased this twice or so before, and now I want to actually tackle it because making battle interesting is probably one of the most difficult things for a DM to attempt or to get right. So, the very first thing you need to know is what are your NPCs' motives? Who is the party fighting? Why are they fighting? Why are they there? What's their skill level? What's their camaraderie like? Are they hired? Are they militia that team together for a common purpose? Are they professional soldiers, like in an army, not mercenary for hire, obviously? That was a different category. So all these different things. And the reason you need to know that is because it determines how hard they're going to fight, how long they're going to fight. They fight to the death. Will they run away at the first blow that goes wrong? Will they stay and fight until strategic victory is not possible? And all these things are dependent on kind of doing a little work and what their backstory is. And so there shouldn't be an instance like I don't like random encounters because they're pointless unless it's like a bear attacks you and then you have a bear or something. I don't know. What's the point? There needs to be a reason why the party is getting attacked or why the party's attacking someone. Are they guarding something? Are they blocking a path? Are they actively hunting the party like a bounty? And your party's not always in the right here, and even if they put lawful good lawfulness on top of their thing, half the time they're not lawful good. It's true. At best, chaotic neutral. At best. So yeah, motives is is the party trying to break into a castle? Are the guards there to defend king and country, and they're there and they're gonna fight to pretty much the death? Are they a fanatic cult where they're definitely fighting to the death? Is it a bunch of farmers who are like, we don't want the PCs take our land or our jobs, and they will fly when their pitchfork gets knocked out of their hands? Or is it somewhere in between? It's a mercenary who maybe the PCs, if they just gave them enough gold, would go away. That's always an interesting thing that people don't do, is if mercenaries are encountering the party and they're about to come to blows, it'd be interesting. The mercenaries say, well, we'll have to fight unless you got enough coin. And then the party's like, oh my god, we can buy them off. Or maybe you have someone in your party who just tries to buy off everyone anyway. I mean, in 5e, you gotta use your gold for something, right? You should use it for bribes, players. Use your gold for bribes. It makes it more fun. Spread the wealth. Because you really don't need it unless you're given a lot of things you can buy. I'm gonna buy a castle on the lake. Good for you. So anyway, so motives, knowing what makes the NPCs tick and what makes them fight or flight. Or give flight. Give fight or give flight. So that's number one. The next thing is you got to know your terrain or your setting. Now this is pretty obvious, but do you use your setting? You could place the battle in a setting, but do you actually use it to great effect where it actually matters that it's in that setting? If not, then you could just be playing on a blank piece of paper and you could call it blank world because nothing about the world affects the fight. And I think that's boring. I think that's boring and you shouldn't do it. So, how do we make terrain, both indoor and outdoor, better? And how do we incorporate it into the battle? Best piece of advice I can give is play the terrain. Yes, you heard it right, folks. Play the terrain. You're outside during a thunderstorm. Lightning strikes a tree. Trees ablaze all of a sudden right there. And then suddenly the players have to contend. Players and NPCs have to contend with this flaming tree that's catching the forest around on fire. Maybe there's a drought and all of a sudden this is kind of, Matchbox. And maybe you're on a cliffside, and not only do you have to deal with the fact that there's a sheer cliff here, maybe the battle, maybe the magic that's happening in the battle, unless for some reason you have a party full of melee fighters, maybe the magic has some kind of pulsing, invisible effect on the mountain, and all of a sudden there's a cascade of rocks coming down that the players have to avoid. And I don't think people use natural effects or natural disasters, if you will, a lot. Well, it's not a disaster. It's not like you're going to have them, it's not like a hurricane, but like natural phenomenon happening naturally. It's always like, oh, a magic wizard cast a spell and then the sun is gone and then the lightning came. The weather can happen without someone affecting it, unless you live in unless your world is completely different, and that's fine, that's cool, but let's say it's just a normal type world where the environment kind of acts on its own accord. You can have a tornado at sea, maybe a naval battle, and there's a water spout, going around, and like, woo, 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 woo. You can have a fight in the desert where perhaps it's the first time it's rained and like it's just become a flash flood and everything's everywhere and you're just like, and you're slipping and splashing and it's got really muddy and bloody and you're just kind of in the dirt and you're gonna round pound. I don't know what round pound means. It's my phrase now. I'm gonna keep it. Round pound. Anyway, so that's how you can, some examples of how you can use your terrain, and that's outdoors. Indoors, you can kind of do the same thing. What kind of structure are you in? Are you in a mansion? Are you in a castle? Are you in a cave? Are you in a mine? What things can affect the structure? In a mine, there's obviously cave-ins can happen. Or in a cave, cave-ins can happen. That's why cave is in cave-ins, because it can happen in a cave. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun how English works? So you can also, if you're like in a built structure, like a castle or something like that, you can put all sorts of, it could be just secret passageways. Maybe there's a fight happening somewhere, but there's a way that the enemy can come through secret passages that the PCs don't know about. Or perhaps you're in a long hall and you're having a fight down a corridor and the enemy just barricades themselves, toppling over like suits of armor and chests of drawers and all this stuff, and all of a sudden the route is impassable, and maybe the players have to circumvent. They go down one alley and then they have to come around another hall, and you can have a pretty complex battle that's kind of sprawling out because that's the way your environment is, and they can use that to flank. They can use it to cut off the enemy. They can do all sorts of neat things with it, or the enemy can do it to them. That's always a possibility. It depends on who knows the terrain better. And usually it's the NPCs that know it better. Unless the NPCs are fighting in the PC's castle, which I guess they spent their money on a castle and they're fighting. Yep, yeah, so, whatever. So, and then there's, like, for one example I had a fight once that was in it was in an incomplete mansion, and they had a fight on the upper level during a torrential downpour, and the roof caved in and started flooding the whole area, and they had to fight and splash around and stuff, and they had to make saves trying to keep upright. And then they were hindered in movement when it got up to their knees, and they had to like wade through the water. Also, setting things on fire is fun. There's the place subject to go up in flames. That's always fun. You could put a little urgency in the players as the fire spreads. You can also do stuff like if it's an old structure and there's like whole weak floors, you can give them a perception check to like, hey, that board doesn't look too friendly, or if they don't, you have them fall through to another level, and there's all sorts of different things you can do. Now, kind of talking about that kind of leads us into our next. I have a notebook. If you look at while I'm looking down, that's why I'm looking down. It's not just like. So, brings us to our next point: props. Props are fun. Use them. We call it set pieces, things that are in the battle arena or battleground that the NPCs or PCs can interact with. This can be anything from maybe you're outside and there's a rock that's held together by just a little rock, and if you just pulled that rock, it would go tumbling down or something like that. Or if they're on a battlefield, maybe there's siege engines that can be fired at close range to some devastating effect. Or maybe you're indoors and there's the classic chandelier effect, or maybe there's the whole pull out the rug effect, or things like that. And or if some of the players are going up the stairs, there's things being pushed down at them, and so they have to dodge them. Same if they're charging up a hill or scaling a castle. So all these kinds of things that can be used as set pieces put into the environment, into the battleground, that kind of take the place of attacks. And so it's not just run up, attack, run up, attack, run up, attack. Be creative. Probably the easiest, like if you were the NPCs, what would you do to get the best advantage using the terrain? If your NPCs are that smart to use it. If they're dumb, you can play them dumb. But if they're like they're soldiers and they have tactical knowledge and tactical expertise, go for some really interesting or like really out there maneuvers to just take the party off guard. It could be as simple as a door was battered down, or table was flipped over, and maybe 4 of the enemy, they're able to lift the table like a long shield across, and maybe they're just kind of like slowly advancing towards the party. Maybe the tactics themselves, and that's kind of a different thing here, but we talk about tactics now. We might as well go into tactics. How the enemy fights together, and if they're cohesive, or if there's a rivalry in between the NPCs. Is it like you're breaking into a den of thieves and there's rivalries and they don't fight cohesively? Maybe they even hinder each other. Maybe one turns and helps the party because they've had it. Or are they professional military men? They're veterans. They're able to phalanx up. They're able to form shield wall. They can, they know how to move forward while like shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot, move, like where the archers are just constantly rotating the ones to take their shot next. So it's just a constant rate of fire. And that's also, we'll talk about that in a second, kind of when you, that'll be the last thing we talk about, when you kind of break the rules a little bit. So that's props. Then the next thing is use levels. And this is, we kind of touched on this. There's someone up in the gallery, they're shooting down. There's someone below shooting up. There is a hill that they must charge. They have disadvantage charging up the hill against an enemy that's just kind of waiting there for them. Or maybe the enemy's charging down on horseback, and it's like, you could use your different levels, use the advantage of higher ground, because that's a real thing. Is the higher ground is usually better. Usually. So levels are kind of self-explanatory. But maybe you could, if say we take a forest example, they have snipers in the trees, they have archers in the trees. They're shooting down while the people on the ground are engaged in melee. So the players have to not only deal with the threat trying to cut them in front of them, but they're also getting picked off from all sides. That probably is really annoying. Oh well. They're getting picked off on all sides from these people in the trees. And what, the players have to climb the trees, or they have to blast them out. And so it just makes for more interesting. I had a hair tickling my ear. So that's just not picking stuff off me like a monkey. I'm a monkey. Look at me. So yeah, you can do things like that with levels, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Really, the advice is don't forget they're there. You can use them. It doesn't have to be all in one plane. Okay, next thing, simplify spellcasting. I can't tell you how annoyed I get trying to spellcasting in 5e. I learned on 3.5. I'm still, I get mixed up all the time with spellcasting. So simplify it. No one you hate it when your players sit there trying to figure out what a spell does and like the damage and all that stuff. Have it ready, have your dice ready, your damage dice ready. Have just a few spells picked out for a battle. You're not going to be able to, exhaust your spell slots in a battle. That's impossible. So just get the highlights and move on, because there is gonna be no point to putting a lot of effort into it, because the players are just gonna kill them usually, unless you make someone really powerful, and they still might kill them. Like my druids in a jungle fight we did recently. These druids, they could reverse gravity. They could walk into a tree and then come out another tree. They could do all these sorts of cool things, but there were only 3 of them, and they were fighting a party of 7 who had a bunch of construct friends with them. That was pretty badass. The druids took out like 7 constructs in the reverse gravity trick because the DC was so high for the reflex save to grab onto something before being thrown 100 feet in the air. And then one of the players then attacked that one who had the spell. The spell went away, and all these poor people just kind of came crashing down 100 feet. And of course, that's 10d6 worth of fall damage, and there's nothing really anyone could do, so they died. So sad. But then the party, they used cover, because they're in the jungle, and there was like stone ruins of a temple, so they're like ducking behind the stones. They cast fog and made all this kind of visibility issues. So, and then they banished one of the druids to another plane, so it was only 2, and they didn't have real good line of sight. So they were really kind of, it was just the turn economy, because you have 7 players against 2 druids now, and it doesn't look so good for the druids. And so they died really quick, but I wanted to make sure that the players feared them. And so I just picked the heavy hitting, or like cool spells from each. I did Wall of Thorns, I did Reverse Gravity, I did the Tree Walk, I did the Grasping Vine, different things like that. And I didn't worry, I made sure they didn't like spam something to the point where it wouldn't make sense they had those slots. But I didn't sit there thinking about every single, here are all their cantrips, here are all their first level spells. No, just bring out the big boys, go 4th level and up, depending on where you are as far as my PCs are level 11 now, or they were level 10. They actually ranked up that game. So level 10, I had 3 level 14 class druids going against. I like using classes for my NPCs because it's just easier. I know what they can do. Gives them a little structure. But yeah, I didn't worry about any first level spells. Why am I going to start shooting off first level spells in an epic battle? I'm not going to do it, man. Just simplify spellcasting. Pick out your best. You aren't going to get that many rounds unless you're really trying to kill your party. because that can really go bad fast if your spellcasters get multiple rounds to go, like more than 4. But who knows? So simplify spellcasting, but also you can alter your spells, make them environmentally appropriate. It wouldn't make sense for a druid to cast a bunch of fire spells in the jungle. They probably are opposed to that kind of stuff. So don't do it. What you do is you change it to some sort of like vine thing, or you just think back to Pokemon. What was the Bulbasaur equivalent of the Charmander attack? Something like that. Weird stuff like that. Basic, or a better example, like I had a cult fight where this cult leader, he, instead of using Pillar of Fire, he used Pillar of Water. So they were attacking these guys on the docks. They were trying to steal a bunch of boats, go off to fulfill their cultish desires, and the party got to them, and the wizard of the party, he countered-spelled one of the cult leader's spells. He got so angry, he did his Pillar of Fire, but it was Pillar of Water. Pretty sure that's the name of the spell. And out of the ocean rose this huge tidal wave and just crashed down on the wizard. And so that was a little tweak. It was just an element tweak. What also you can, I also did a homebrew spell where it was a snatch arrow kind of spell. Came up with some mechanics of it. But these are the kinds of things, because if you have a wizard in your party who likes to get spell books and add stuff to his list, give it to him. And take this as an opportunity to put some unique, your own creation in there. If you can just say to the guy, hey, I want to try this out. If it's too OP, we'll tweak it. If it's too crap, we'll tweak it, So, and if the player understands, and, I think they would appreciate those kinds of fun flavor spells that they can collect in the world. So once the person who's using the spell is defeated, have it available for the spellcasters or the wizards to study. And so that will bring us to our last bit. Know how to break the rules. I'm not just talking about fudging dice. I'm talking about being creative with the dice. I think all too often we get bogged down with each attack's a roll, or d20, each attack's a d20. Say you have a big battle. How do you keep that from just being, okay, 20 people are going to roll, so I roll 20 d20s, and I look at them all, add their modifiers. Don't do that. Use your percentile dice. I love the simplicity, but also kind of the fairness of percentile dice. If some PC, or if someone's hiding in half cover, instead of, depending on the battle, instead of an arrow having, if there's 20 arrows coming at them, instead of each one rolling a d20, and then you might just pepper your player with arrows, just roll a percentile. If it rolls over 50, because the half cover thing, then he gets hit. And you could just keep it like that, so you're not getting bogged down by dice rolls and modifier adding and damage track. Also, I love the minions from 4th edition. Have one-hit wonder bad guys. If they're just minions, they can still deal damage. Maybe their AC is a little higher, but they go down in 1 or 2 hits. So you alter your NPCs, alter your dice rolling. Maybe you roll 1 attack dice for every same type of unit. So all the archers roll on this roll. So d20 for all the archers. Do they miss? Do they hit? D20 for all the swords. And some of you might not like that. I just find it's easier when bigger battles. When it's a smaller battle, what you can do is, I mean, you can keep it more traditional with a smaller battle, but still there are things that I think can be done to kind of tweak the battle rules a little bit. For instance, if you are trying to have a monster move somewhere and it technically doesn't work out move wise, a lot of times I'll just say, okay, they can't move there. But also, depending on how the battle started, like if my players just rush in and all of a sudden they are like, okay, we're gonna fight this person. Okay, we're fighting, and all of a sudden we're right up on top, and all of a sudden they're trying to start a fight. Every one of them is right on the big bad monster, and I'm like, well, that wasn't really fair. You just kind of kept moving your token, and what am I gonna do? Like move it back and smack your hand and be like, no, no, no. So I was just like, okay, this was a beholder battle. Beholder's turn. He just flies back. I don't give a shapoopy. So you can be more liberal, I think, with movement. You can use your percentile dice more, especially when it comes to mass combat. I also would suggest using maybe like a median damage dealing number. But anyway, so that was my tips on how to keep the combat interesting. Give a like, give a subscribe if you like it and want to subscribe. I appreciate it. This has been DD from the closet. Have a good one.